Hippopotamus here, and today I'm going to be showing you my system corruption build. This can be used in both PvE and PvP. Just want to quickly apologise if this video goes on for a little bit longer than normal. There is a lot of working parts with this build, and there is some descriptions that are going to take a little bit longer than normal. Okay, so let's go take a look at the specialization table. And the main thing to note here is that because your medkit is replaced with system corruption, any of these specializations can be good for you. I have simply chosen the gunner because it's got a couple of things in here that I think synergize quite well. One of which is incessant, killing enemies grants 10% armor. Because system corruption gives you 15% armor on kill, an extra 10% here brings you up to 25. Very nice. The other thing is the synergizing weapons. Now the main thing is I'm using an LMG, and the large pouch magazine gives me 50 extra rounds in the Black Friday, something we'll see in just a moment. I also have a rifle, which is what I will be using, and I also have a assault rifle. Now the rifle is more for PvE, and the assault rifle is what I switched to in PvP, and I'll show you in just a moment with that. So there is some other bonuses in here that do help us a little bit, but not quite as much as what the ones I've just discussed. I'll go through those now. The coupler, which is a 50% reload speed increase on every third magazine. Yeah, it's not bad. Better for PvE. PvP, you'd probably be dead by the time you see the advantage of that. We also have the supply line to regenerate your ammo. This can be handy. Sometimes you're at extended periods of gunfights where you can't just run back to an ammo box, but it's not as important as something, say, like as the last build that I released, the Striker build, where you're just going to be chewing through ammo. Barrage is useful because we have on kill, so we do take advantage of, armor on kill. So after a kill, we gain a 5% fire rate increase for 5 seconds. That's useful. It can be helpful to chain multiple kills. And we have emplacement. This is less useful because this build very much focuses on moving around and staying on the move and choosing when to attack and retreat, because bonuses when they're down, it could lead to you getting killed. That's something that we'll talk about more. The riot foam grenades in PvE can slow down big enemies, which is very useful. In PvP, if you manage to get them off, they are extremely frustrating, but they're not quite as easy as something like the riot foam cannon that you'd be able to use. So should you be able to get that off, that would be useful, but it's not as significant as the other bonuses that I've showed. Okay, let's go and talk about the build itself, and then we'll check all the stat sheet and everything else. Right, so to start with, I have this build set up for partially PvE and partially PvP, because one weapon is a placeholder, possibly two. So we'll start with the weapons first that can be changed, okay? So I'm using the Black Friday. The reason for this is just because of the talent. This one comes with LMG damage, damage to targets out of cover, and damage to armor. But again, the talent is perfectly unhinged. So this is going to give us 22% extra weapon damage at the cost of 25% stability and 25% accuracy. We are using the Ravenous, and this is basically more for PvE. I've used it in PvP, and I've seen very limited success with it. So this is just a pre-warning that if I was using things in PvP, I would switch weapons around. I'll just quickly go through that now. I would probably use the Pestilence and something like the Shield Splinter if it was PvP, okay? But given that we're showing both sides of this build off, I'm going to keep the Ravenous on for a minute and go through a fun mechanic that you can use to gain extra damage. So my Ravenous, it comes with rifle damage, crit hit damage, and damage to targets out of cover. So the talents are Jerry and Frecky. So on trigger pull, both barrels fire at once. And what's going to happen is when we fire from the right hand shoulder, it's going to add an offensive primer. And when we fire from the left, it's going to add a defensive primer. So these primers can be stacked up multiple times. I think it's up to about 10 possibly. And when you change shoulder and fire with a different primer, it's going to detonate all the ones that you've stacked up. So the interesting part about this is when you detonate the primers, if you detonate offensive primers, it's going to do 100% extra weapon damage. And if you detonate the defensive primers, it's going to give you 4% bonus armor and 10% amplified damage to armor plates for 5 seconds. So that's really cool because with our gear set that we have, it allows us to gain additional damage for bonus armor if we have it. So I'll just go ahead and show that dead quickly now and go through it. So if we have 2 pieces of system corruption, we gain armor on kill. If we have 3 pieces of system corruption, we have disrupt resistance at 40% and pulse resistance at 40%, very important. And 4 pieces is the hack step protocol. So it replaces armor kits with an instant infinite use ability, and it's on a 20-second cooldown. So what this does is it repairs 20% of your armor and grants 50% bonus armor over the top of that. It also hides your nameplate for 5 seconds. Now, as we've just talked about the Ravenous and what it does, it gives you bonus armor. Listen to this. Increase total weapon damage by 2% per 5% bonus armor gained, up to 20%. So the Ravenous, other than using a medkit, is going to allow us to get bonus armor. And this is the reason why I use it in PvE. So I'll just quickly go through how my pieces are set up. I have a core attribute of weapon damage and crit hit chance on my holster. On my knee pads, I have them set up with armor and crit hit chance. With the glove, I have it set up with weapon damage and crit hit chance. And with the backpack, I have it set up with armor, crit hit damage, and a crit hit chance mod placed in. So what's going to happen with the talent on the backpack? This is really good because it's going to allow you to double the amount of bonus armor that you get. It's called multi-thread execution, and when you do press the medkit button, it's going to give you 100% rather than 50, and what that's going to mean in translation is that when we start a gunfight, if we use this in the right way, we have 3 million armor. Okay, so I will talk about the brand set next, and that is a piece of Bellstone. The reason why I'm using that is just a 1% armor regeneration. It's not a lot of armor regen, but it's a slow trickle, and as we can't use medkits the same way, a slow trickle heal sometimes can be very useful, considering the fact that we're going to be playing attack retreat sort of style of gameplay. So as we move away, we can just recuperate a little bit of our armor, and it just sort of helps considering the fact that medkits only ever recover 20% of our armor in total. This one comes rolled with 170,000 armor, crit hit damage, crit hit chance, and crit hit chance. The talent is unbreakable, and in PvE it's going to give you 95% of your armor back, and PvP it's going to give you 50. Okay, so this is important because if our medkit is down, we may need to fall back on this talent to keep us alive. Right, so onto the mask. I am using the Catharsis. This is useful for multiple reasons. It not only gives us damage, it also gives us the ability to remove status effects, and it also gives us the ability to gain additional healing when we don't have any. Okay, so if I could just go through what this has, it has 170,000 armor, incoming repairs, armor regen, and I also have a pulse resistance mod. Now, in PvP, the pulse resistance is vital because if enemies are using things like flatline and other talents that you can pulse, I think I've forgotten the name of it now. See if I can remember the name of it. Spotter. That's the name of it. If people are using flatline and spotter, then this is going to effectively cancel out all their extra damage. You know, removing up to 40% weapon damage off people that are using those talents. And as well, it also stops people that are using Heartbreaker. So again, this is another one that you're going to see people using Heartbreaker. They're going to pulse you and get stacks off you. They cannot do that to you. They cannot do that at all. So effectively what this is going to do is the talent vicious cycle. When you take damage up to a cap of 30, you're going to gain an extra 1.5% weapon damage. So that's 35% extra weapon damage. So just while we're here, a quick thing to say is, if we have bonus armor, if we use the medkit before we get into a fight, if an enemy's shooting at you, they can be damaging your bonus armor and you still be gaining that damage increase before they've even touched your normal armor, which is very, very useful. We also have the fact that when you take damage, it releases a purge after 30 stacks. This is going to get rid of any status effects and also drop a healing cloud, which if you can dance around in it, it's going to give you basically 50% of your armor back over 10 seconds. All really useful stuff, but quite a few moving parts there to discuss. So for our skills, if we're playing PvE, I would go a Reviver Hive, it just makes sense. But in this case, I just have it set up for PvP, just for quick access. I can always put a hive on. And I am using a holographic distraction. This hides our nameplate and also can trick enemies into thinking we're somewhere that we're not. Because we have pulse resistance, just be aware if you throw this out and it's close to you, it's going to give away your position. So whenever we throw this, we want to throw this well away from where we want the enemy to think that we actually are. The Defender drone is just basically for the straight up damage reduction across the board in both PvE and PvP. And we also have the Riot Foam Grenade, which can stick enemies down, as we've discussed. Right, so with all that, let's go have a look at the range, which is right, and we'll also turn off Skill Haste, and just check that the modifiers are off because we don't want inaccurate numbers. Perfect. I'll very quickly fly through the stat sheet. So perfectly unhinged, Jerry and Frecky, and preservation on our pistol. Again, just to give us an extra skill tier. If we hold it, that's going to help with certain skills. We also have reasonably high weapon damage. It's not, super high, but it's benefiting from some of the talents that we've taken. Again, crit is reasonably high, but you may need to change attachments around depending on the crit cap and crit damages that you have on the weapons that you're using at the time. Okay, so weapon damages are moderate. So for our gear talents, we have multi-thread execution, unbreakable, and vicious cycle. We are using the Catharsis Mask, 4 pieces of system corruption, and 1 Bellstone Armory. We have just a little under 1.5 million armor, meaning that we press the button, we're going to have somewhere around 3 million. We also have quite high armor on kill, and that is because we are stacking things from both the Specialization and the gear set that we have. Armor regen is just a little under 20,000. I don't count if I take more ranks of expertise. I could maybe have this at 25,000. Again, this is just designed to be a slow trickle heal and be something that we can stack up with things like the Catharsis, so just to complement it of an extra little bit of healing. We have the decoy and the defender drone. Perfect. So there's a few things to go through here, and what I will do is I will just show the easiest things to show first and then go through the more complicated things first. So obviously, just shooting at enemies, we have reasonable weapon damage. It's not masses, but as you can see, the accuracy and stability isn't a massive hit when we take that talent. The other thing we can do is just bring the target close, and let's discuss the Ravenous. So, the Ravenous, as we said, if we shoot from one shoulder, it's going to add these bonuses, and then when we shoot from the other, it's going to blow up a load of armor plates. I believe this weapon is very good for the drones, especially on the end of Roosevelt Island, things like that. But the reason why I'm using it is to shoot from the left shoulder. I'm going to add this blue stack. So if you watch the damage now when we hit 239, now switch. Now all of a sudden we're 287. So as you can see, this is a reliable way of proccing the extra damage that we get from the gear set. And what we can do is we can stack it up super high and even press the button on top of that, and look how much bonus armor we've got. That's crazy. So that's one thing we can do. So the other thing that I really wanted to mention is that obviously people that are using Spotter and Flatline or potentially Heartbreaker aren't going to be able to pulse us, right? So generally those people that build those builds, they're going to have similar armor to us, or they're going to be like 3 red, 3 blue, so about 1.3, 1.5 million armor. The idea with this build is to pick on those people, isolate them when they're on their own, run straight at them. The second you see them pull up their gun to shoot, we're going to hit our armor kit, and remember, we need to hold down the right button. If we don't hold down the right button, we only proc part of the kit. So actually I will just quickly show that in just a second, because we can show off some of the regeneration. You can see that it's just a slow trickle heal, and again, we'll get extra armor if we break our armor. So there we go. We can also just take a little bit of damage, and we'll get the healing pool once it's there. Drops us a heal that we can run around in. Okay. So what we can do is we can walk up to an enemy and press the button and gain double armor. If you press the button once, you'll see that I only gain 20%. If I double tap it, it's just going to give me 20%. So never double tap. You need to hold it down to make sure that you get that bonus armor. If you double tap, you're only going to get 20%. It's going to be a massive waste. The other thing is just the riot foam grenades. They're quite nice, and they can sort of stick an enemy down. So useful. Right, so other than that, I can't really think of anything else to sort of go through. I'm mindful about how long this video is going on for now. Again, apologies for that. Hopefully this comes out the way that I wanted to, because I've recorded this about 50 times now, and I will see you in the next one.